Hey homeschoolers, I'm Melissa Webb, former full-time classroom teacher and homeschool mom turned full-time business CEO and encourager to homeschool families everywhere. I am determined and dedicated to helping you in this journey that you're on. Yes, I want to give you sound, educational, practical tips and advice, at the same time making sure that you're enjoying the family journey that you are on. So if you are looking for a place to be encouraged and inspired, you have found the perfect podcast. Homeschooling is a work of heart is truly the perfect place to start. So welcome. Let's jump in. Well, hello, friend, and welcome back to Homeschool is a Work of Heart. I am so happy to be here with you. I love recording these podcasts, sharing thoughts, hopefully offering a smile up to you and spending a little time together. As homeschooling parents, I know how exhausting life can be, and sometimes I think it's just great that you can get a little bit of an escape and put your earbuds in and wash those dishes while you're doing something to fill up your own well. It's so important. But I also want to remind you, I am a real person on the other side of this microphone who loves to connect with all of her listeners. So find me on Instagram, find me on Facebook, email me. I promise I will get back to you. I think homeschooling community is where it's at. Okay, so you might think that this week's episode title is a little interesting, Cinnamon Toast. I do want to toast the man who made my synonym dreams come true. But this all started a few weeks ago when a student was asking about the Webster Dictionary and how that was named after a person who started that idea. But why the person who created the thesaurus isn't given credit to the name. So this child had never heard a name credited with the thesaurus and wondered, was the same person who created the dictionary the same as the thesaurus? Great question, right? I think kids ask the best questions. And so it was a perfect opportunity to explain, oh no, that was actually a whole other person who did that. And this is going to age me, I understand. But back when I was in high school, I remembered using Roget's thesaurus. There was a name to it. I just think that nowadays there are so many versions of dictionaries and thesauruses that the individuals are not credited as they once were. But does the name Peter Mark Roget ring a bell for you? He has a very interesting story, and I thought, maybe I should do a podcast episode on this. Because if you love learning, you'll find it interesting. I like biographies. And if you're not familiar, well, it's just good information. Plus, it is because of Peter Mark Roget that we not only have the thesaurus, the book of synonyms, but we also have some great jokes that we'd otherwise not have. And I have two, but I promise, just two. All right, these are my two favorites. I use them with students every year. Number one, what do you call a dinosaur with an extensive vocabulary? A thesaurus. It kind of lends itself to that one, don't you think? Okay, and the second one is, what do thesauruses eat for breakfast? Synonym rolls. Okay. Students do still love jokes, so those are great ones. Feel free to use them all you want. I do want to say that part of the reason why I decided to share this topic this week is, yes, to teach you some things that you may not have known that I find interesting, but also to encourage and inspire you to listen carefully to the questions your children ask. Let their curiosity pave your educational journey. And there is nothing wrong with saying, honey, I actually don't know the answer to whatever questions they ask. And then toss in, but I think we should study it. I mean, that's the sign of a true homeschooling spirit. So many students will be like, be careful what you ask mom. She's going to make us study it. Are you raising your hand? Or you're like, guilty, we do that. I know you do. I know you do. That's why I love you. And by all means, do keep it fun and light. We must keep our homeschooling world the opposite of the world that most of us grown-ups are living in these days. But here's how the story goes with this fine fella, Peter Mark Roget. So he was born in the late 1700s. So it was the early 19th century. He was around 20, I think, at the turn of the century. He lived in London. And he was a busy, busy guy. He did a lot of things. He was a physician. That's what he was probably best known for the length of his career. But he also was an inventor of several different things. Like you could even just do some more research on Peter Mark Roget. You could expand on this and let it snowball into a really cool study unit. He was a lecturer. But above all, I would say he was a lover of words. And he was professionally very successful. But the thing about his life is that he also had a lot of personal challenges that many people wouldn't have known or realized. For one, his father died when he was very young, and that impacted him. Throughout his life, he battled with depression. He said that he often felt uncertain, and he thought life and the world were very chaotic, and that gave him a sense of stress and anxiety. But what he loved and where he found solace was in things that were structured. And so he discovered that organizing numbers, organizing medical terms, and organizing language by categorizing thoughts and mapping ideas, all of those things brought him a sense of clarity, a sense of peace. So when he was a child, a young boy, he started to make these lists. And they weren't just like any list. They were lists of words that he would hear, and he started to group them together by their meanings. So if they were similar, they would all be on one list. And now, while others might have seen it as very trivial, for Peter, that was very meaningful because, again, in a life that felt very unstructured, putting things into these categories, into these little buckets of sorts, gave him a sense of peace. And over time, the list grew, and he never stopped. He, through medical school, continued. Through his medical profession, he continued. He'd read books and he'd add words. This was just very meaningful for him. Now, it also was what he called his personal system for navigating language and life. So he went ahead and had his career in medicine. He kept his passion for words growing. He kept his word list growing. And then he retired. By this time, I think it was the mid 1800s. And he was in his early 70s. And at this point, he turned his attention to the decades of notes and word lists that he had compiled. And he painstakingly categorized these synonyms and phrases, not alphabetically like a dictionary. He wanted it to be different. He wanted it to be conceptually. Things would be grouped by ideas or by emotions or by function. And this was revolutionary. I mean, nobody approached language this way. The complexity truly is remarkable when you think about it. So it essentially was a taxonomy of thought, I suppose. And he believed that words reflect the categories that humans experience. And if we could organize them accordingly, it would allow people to express themselves with authenticity and a real sense of genuineness. And when he originally did this, he first divided his book into these 6 broad classes, and I won't go into all of them. But one of them, for example, was sentient and moral powers, meaning your feelings. And that was a very broad class. But within that broad class, he had emotions, he had morality, he had religion. Okay. And then each of those classes were broken into sections and then subsections. And each of those ideas were given a number, which he called a head. And under that number, for example, there was head 837, and then it would say the word joy. And then under that, he'd have all the synonyms: happiness, gladness, delight, glee, jubilation, ecstasy. He'd have all of these other words. So, as I said, it's very structured and quite complex. Nowadays, we just look up a word. We can just be in Google Docs and go to dictionary and highlight a word, and it will give us not only the meaning of the word, but it will also give a list of words that mean the same thing, synonyms. And so these are things that we completely take for granted, but something that a person put a whole lot of thought and time and deep, deep thinking into making it happen. And it was awesome because it did make it so much easier to find related words that were under a single thought. So even if a person didn't know exactly what word, there were so many ways they could go find it and look it up by the way that he organized it, whether that be by one of the broad classes or the section or the subsection. He just really designed it well. And what fascinates me is that the thesaurus was more than just a book of synonyms. It really did reflect his inner world. It's his way of bringing order to chaos, meaning to emotions, expression to thought. It's pretty powerful. His book of words and phrases also empowered everyone to be able to say what they truly meant, to find the words that were most fitting for their ideas, for how they wanted to communicate. And he didn't end in his 70s. Oh no, Roget continued to refine his thesaurus until he died at age 90. This truly was his life's work. And I think his incredible legacy is one that demonstrates a slow and quiet brilliance. And isn't that a great reminder? I mean, sometimes the greatest contributions take time. And if you have a quiet thinker, the greatest gift that you can offer your child is time and silence. That can be so challenging in today's very rushed society, but you know your kiddos. Do you have a quiet thinker? Are you carving out time to allow those who find peace and creativity in silent moments, in small spaces, quiet spaces? Is that what they need to thrive in their unique ways? If so, it is your job to give them that. You may have a Roget in your presence. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind. We want to, as homeschooling parents, pay attention to the individual children in our homes. Every single one is different. Everyone has his and her own personal strengths, and we want to grow them in those areas that they were already made to define and expand. By the way, if you enjoyed this episode, I bet you have a love of learning just like me. So you could take this idea and run with it. I think it could be fun or interesting to learn or study about the many types of dictionaries. As I was looking up some things for today's episode, I started to think, gosh, there are so many different kinds of dictionaries these days. They are vast and varied. And there's a lot of history behind those as well. So most people think of a dictionary as just a general purpose explanation of words, but there are so many different kinds of dictionaries. There are bilingual dictionaries. There are etymological dictionaries, right? The ones that talk about like the origin of words. Those are interesting. If you've not ever read one of those, fascinating. There are pronunciation dictionaries. And of course, like in specific fields, there are medicine dictionaries, ecology dictionaries, religious dictionaries, fine arts dictionaries. I could go on and on. You get the idea? What I think is important is to find something of interest. Maybe it's none of what I talked about today. Maybe you're like, nope, that's enough. What you shared is plenty. But did something else stir in that brain of yours? Are you remembering something one of your children recently asked you about? Could you see turning that into a study unit and explore? Ah, I hope you do. And to Peter Mark Roget, we give you a toast, a synonym toast, of course. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Right on. Well, thanks so much for tuning in and listening this week. Hey, if this was something that you found valuable, don't forget you want to subscribe or follow so that every time a new episode is dropped, you'll be the first to know. And hey, before you go, if you are looking to get some of this academic writing under your belt and outsourced so that it's one less thing, freeing you up to enjoy more time with your family, hey, you're going to want to head over to writeonweb.com to see what kinds of resources and materials I have available for you. I will look forward to seeing you there, and I will look forward to seeing you here in our next episode. Right on.